Discipline is one of the most misunderstood words out there. Most people hear discipline and think of willpower, forcing yourself to do what needs to be done, even when you do not feel like it. They assume disciplined people are simply stronger, more motivated, more mentally tough. But there is a problem with that idea. It sounds right, it feels right, and it still misses the main driver. Because discipline is not primarily about willpower. Discipline is about environment. And there is a way to prove that with numbers, not inspiring stories, not personality types, numbers. Start with a simple observation from psychology. Lewin described behavior as a function of the person and the environment. In other words, what you do is not only who you are, it is also what surrounds you. That sounds abstract until you see what happens when you move one small piece of the environment. Just a small piece. Here is one. Food. In a controlled study, researchers changed only the distance of a snack. Near versus far. No speeches about health, no motivational quotes, just placement. When the snack was near, about 70.7% of people took it. When it was placed farther away, about 57.7% took it. Same people, same room, same day, same day. One change in the environment, a 13-point swing in behavior. That is not a willpower story. That is a design story. Now zoom out. Another study put food close to students during a 1-hour work task. Same foods, same time. Different distance. When the food was close, the group consumed about 726 calories. When the food was 6 meters away, they consumed about 504 calories. That is an extra 222 calories in 1 hour. Without people reporting higher fullness, now make that cost real. 222 calories is not dramatic once. But if that happens 3 times a week, that is 666 extra calories. If it happens 5 times a week, that is 110 extra calories. Not because your discipline vanished, because the environment quietly increased the default intake. And the same mechanism shows up outside food. It shows up in decisions. Willpower is not just a feeling. It is a limited capacity for self-control and deliberate choice. And the more decisions you make, the harder the next decision becomes. That is the mechanism. Decision fatigue. There is a famous study of parole decisions that shows how strong this effect can be. Judges were far more likely to give a favorable ruling right after a break. Then, as they moved through a session, favorable rulings dropped gradually to near zero. And after the next break, the favorable rate returned to about 65%. This is not about whether judges care about justice. It is about what repeated decisions do to the mind, even for experts, even when the stakes are high. So when you reach the end of the day and your discipline collapses, it is not always a character issue. It is often the predictable result of asking your brain to keep choosing all day. Now connect that back to environment. Highly disciplined people do not rely on constant self-control. They reduce the number of battles they have to fight. They make the right behavior easier to start, and the wrong behavior harder to reach. Behavioral economists have a formal term for this: choice architecture. It is the idea that the way options are arranged changes what people do, and there is a very clear example: defaults. In research on organ donation decisions, opt-in countries and opt-out countries showed a gap of nearly 60 percentage points in effective consent rates. A difference that large does not come from millions of people suddenly developing more willpower. It comes from the environment choosing the baseline, and people rarely pushing against the baseline. Now bring this down to everyday life. If your phone is always next to you, the environment is asking your brain to resist hundreds of tiny pulls, even if you do not touch it. One well-known study tested the mere presence of a smartphone and found that people performed better on cognitive tasks when the phone was in another room compared to when it was on the desk. There is also debate in the literature, with at least one replication attempt not finding the same effect, and more recent work again finding cognitive costs from the mere presence of a phone. The bigger point is not one perfect result. The bigger point is that inputs change outputs, and your environment is made of inputs. So discipline becomes sustainable when you stop treating willpower like an infinite fuel, and start treating it like a scarce resource. You spend it once, strategically, to redesign the environment. Then you stop paying the daily tax of constant resistance. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. If the wrong choice is the closest choice, the easiest choice, the default choice, then your day becomes a long sequence of fights. And eventually you lose a few, not because you are weak, because you are human. This is why discipline is not mainly about forcing yourself to do hard things every day. It is about building a life where the right actions happen with less friction, where the environment carries part of the load, where the default supports you instead of draining you. That is not motivational. That is mechanical. And once you see it, you stop asking how to become stronger. You start asking how to become better designed. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you don't want to miss what's coming next, hit the like button and subscribe. We post new videos every week, so turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.